Ortho. Today is Wednesday, January 13th. Goodbye, 2020. Hello, 2021. And I want to welcome Dr. Scott Hoffinger again.
Hello, everybody.
And today's topic, we're going to talk everything to do about orthopedics and casts. And we are going to talk about how to care for your cast, your broken bones, any injuries you might have in cold weather and how that's different, and answer any other questions that you may have and or have already submitted. And so we're looking forward to kicking off 2021 in a healthy way. Broken bones still happen. Orthopedic events still happen. And we can talk about that as well as anything else of interest. So Dr. Hoffinger, so what can we tell our viewers and listeners, whether it's current or they're watching it on the replay, what do we need to know about caring for a cast? In fact, Beth asked the question, how do I care for my cast in the cold weather? I have a hand cast. How do I care for my fingers? Excuse me. How do I care for my fingers? It doesn't, our mitten, our gloves do not fit on my cast.
Well, I always go back to the fact that the casts do fine. It's that we're fragile. And remember, when you're not in a cast, when you're using your arm and leg and foot normally, as you're moving it, you're encouraging blood flow.
Okay.
And so you use your muscles, that pushes blood back up in the veins. And so the more blood flow, it's why when we're cold, we rub our hands together and we move our fingers. And you can't do that as much in a cast. So it's pretty common that your fingers and toes are going to get colder. And really the best thing that you can do is just try to keep them covered. You can move them to the extent that you can, move your toes. I mean, it's not a whole lot of movement you get out of your toes, but you can move your toes, your fingers, and then you just got to keep it covered. I just learned before, we used to just use a big tube sock. And then as you get older, people say, what's a tube sock? But I just found out that, a net has some things that function very well for this. And really, it's the best you can do. And you got to be careful for that because your fingers and toes are going to get cold pretty quickly. And that's like usually when you're furthest from the house and you think, oh, now I'm in trouble. So just thinking ahead and trying to move as best you can and then keep them covered.
Great advice, thinking ahead and keep moving your appendages. I think that's great. What Dr. Hoffinger was referring to, CastCoverz has mitts dry and mitts cozy for hands. So it's like a big old oven mitt, but we've designed it for convenience as well as function and comfort. And it has a side Velcro closure. And there's two different versions. There's the mitts cozy, which is fleece fabric, but then there's also the mitts dry, which has denier, think backpack, duffel bag material. And so it repels water. So if you're walking to the bus or skiing, I'm not going to ask, and you need a mitts dry or mitts cozy, this repels rain and water, not for immersion in water, but for repelling. And so those have, we've had those out for a few years now. They're big sellers. What we have for leg casts is the similar material. We have the slickers is what we call it for leg casts. And it's the same material as it is the denier material. So it is weather resistant, and it is just to protect your cast and your toes if you have a leg cast. And then we have our Boot Guard Extreme, which is for the orthopedic walking boot. And so that also prevents a lot of, it keeps the boot clean, but it also protects your toes from wind and rain and all that. The tread of the boot is exposed, leaving it safe for the patient as they're walking with their boot. And so the entire boot is covered, protecting the boot as well as the toes. So we
also think about with, as a pediatric orthopedist, it's the thing we always talk about, that kids are going to find a way to get it wet, get it dirty, get involved. And so if you've got an arm cast and you're a kid and you want to go outside and play in the snow, plan ahead. You're not going to keep them from going into the snow because they'll find a way. So whether it's a combination of the plastic cast cover and then the denier one, something on the outside, because, of course, kids don't get freezing cold like we do, but just protect it. And then they're going to be able to play. My son, when he had something, we had to improvise. It was quite a long time ago, so he could play in the sand, because there's no way he was not going to play in the sand at the beach. They can go outside and play in the snow. When you plan ahead, you want to keep it dry. It doesn't have to be, again, snow isn't going to be like immersing it in water. So you get some snow on it, but you've got a cover on top of it, and you're usually going to be just fine. You might need to use a little bit of a blow dryer when you get inside to warm it up and dry it out a little bit, but it's not going to be the same as if you immerse it in a pool.
That's great. And I like the plan ahead as well. So you mentioned something about the blow dryer on a cast. I have read conflicting information about using a blow dryer, about its safety or efficacy. Do you want to elaborate on that?
So when you think about, just, again, this is very simplistic. People are going to, why are you dumbing it down like this? But, you want to dry something out, you blow air by it. Now, if you want to dry it faster, you use warm air. It'll help it evaporate. And if you use hot air, yeah, you can get burned. And when we've tried it, and we've tried this on ourselves also, it feels good. And then, wow, that's really hot. So it's really using no more than warm, keeping a bit of a distance away, 6, 8, 10 inches away. And you can use a cool hair dryer, and that has no risk to it, but it takes longer. So if you're coming in from outside and it's got a little bit of wetness on the outside of it, I think a cool hair dryer is going to be just fine. If you were going to want to dry it out a little bit more, nothing more than warm. Don't use hot, because it really does build up inside. And then keep a distance away from it. And watch a video, because it's not fast. But if you spend the time, and this is all the inconvenience of having an injury and being in a cast, you'll be able to take care of it, and your kids can still go outside and play and have a good time.
We carry a product that's called the Cast Cooler that actually attaches to the hose of a vacuum cleaner that inverts the air and does exactly that. And it's a fabulous product. It's a great comfort product. In fact, I think that's how you and I met, is through our friend Tamara Monosov's daughter. Leg cast, she fell in the pool, or got in the pool, and her cast got wet. And so I said, use the Cast Cooler, but still you asked to have her come in, and you couldn't believe that it was dry. So that was a long time ago. That's a great story. So, okay. So, other than thinking ahead, planning ahead, moving your fingers, recognizing that children will be out and that they aren't as cold as we are. We always look at them and say, you need a coat on. No, they don't. Not necessarily. That's just for our comfort. What else? So I've had some customers, for example, want to make snow angels, want to shovel snow, want to just keep going with their world, even though they're in an orthopedic device. And an orthopedic device can be a cast, brace, boot, splint. What's your advice when somebody says, I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do?
It's going to depend on the injury that you have. And your orthopedic surgeon should be able to tell you this. And think about them in categories. They can't tell you everything that you can or can't do, partly because there's always something else that kids are going to think of. But is this an injury that is very fragile? And things have changed, where a fracture that is that fragile, that's going to move unless you hold perfectly still, just not practical. Just doesn't work like that. And so we'll, now going back many years, we tend to operate on those. The other side is that if you take an injury and you wiggle it over and over and over and over again, that's not a great thing. You don't want to help it move. And so find out whether this is in a category that for a period of a week, 10 days, you really want to keep it elevated, minimize your activity, versus you're at the end of the healing phase and it's really just a matter of time. And you can move it, you can shovel, you can lift things with it, or is it in the middle? And this changes over time. In the beginning, things will be fragile, also because it'll hurt more if you do too much with it. By the end, it's just an inconvenience and you're just waiting for the cake to finish baking. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle, there's transition. And so you can find out, how active can I be on this? And then, can you shovel? Can you do things? I've never had a good answer to, can you ski with a cast? The reason is that it doesn't seem like it's a good idea. Mm-hmm. When you fall, you're going to transmit stress to other places. I can't tell you how many people have ignored my advice.
Mhm.
And there have been some injuries, but this is risk tolerance, and you have an injury and let it get better, let it heal, but do as much as you can. Kid wants to go skiing, put him on a sled, take him one of those flying saucers, go down with him. You can find ways to still have a good time without taking as much risk. And then again, towards the end of the immobilization period, you can usually be pretty active with your cast.
That brings me to another question we had from Bob, who said he had both of his boys. He has 4 boys, but 2 of them, one broke an arm, one broke a leg. But the one that after the cast was different times, but the one where the cast was removed from the arm within a week broke the same arm again. And yes, he was being, as he said, boisterous, and he spelled boisterous with B-O-Y. I thought that was kind of cute.
Very good.
How does it break so quickly after the cast is removed?
There's a couple of factors that go into it, and some fractures in some locations have a very high rate of refracture, relatively high, meaning 10-15%. And
wow, that is high.
Yeah, and so some of them actually, like technically green stick fractures of the forearm, you think, well, they're not all the way broken through, they're broken and bent, and they have the highest refracture rate. So part of it is the type of fracture. The other is the location of the fracture. And the other is activity level. I mean, we took a body cast off a kid who had a femur fracture and came in and broke it again. And parents were pretty upset and said, how did this happen? And I said, oh, no, tell me about it. And he said he was on the top bunk and he tried to jump to the other bunk to tackle his brother and he missed. I don't think that was the fracture's problem. I think that's just gravity. Right. So, and there are going to be times where in hindsight, we've taken the cast off too early. But the other side is we don't want to cast you any longer than we need to. And so there's really a balance there. The more we cast you, the more your bones thin out. There's the psychological aspect. Nobody likes being in a cast. But it's a risk. There's a period of time when you come out of the cast that your bones are a little bit thinner and the weak spot might be at that area or right next to it. So it's one of those that's largely bad luck.
True. That makes sense. Another question we had was from Louise, who said that is this a good idea? She had a broken arm. Oh, this is interesting. She had a broken arm and she had a sling. And then the doctor said, you're ready. You're good. Cast off. You're good to go. And she was afraid about re-injuring it, hurting it. And so she just kept wearing her sling for another week or so. Did that impede any kind of healing doing that?
No, generally that's a great idea. We take the cast off and you're not magically all better. Again, there's the immobilization. As we said, your bones thin out some, your joints are stiff. And so that sounds like it's a very smart thing to do. And so we'll tell people, take the cast off. I want you to use the sling for another week, or I want you to use a splint part-time during the day. I want you to use this and gradually work up. But you're often so happy to be out of the cast that you want to do things, but there really should be a transition period from, remember, the cast is complete control, complete immobilization, to utter freedom. And some people need more hand-holding through that phase. Some people will, again, anecdote, a boy came in and he came out of a cast and then he ruptured his ACL, and they said, well, you said he could do anything. And I said, well, I said he was cleared for activity, and he rode his bike off the garage roof with a ramp. I said, well, it didn't make him superhuman, but he was cleared.
So common sense is part of the prescription.
Yeah. So, so the person who used the sling was very clever to just have a period of time, even if it's just a week, 3 days, 10 days, somewhere in there, having a gradual increase in activity. It's pretty much always going to be a good idea.
I suggest that to my daughter when she broke her humerus. And for those of you who don't know, the humerus is the big bone in your upper arm. And it was a very bad break. And she was 10 years old. And this was her 6th broken bone. And yes, this is where I got the idea for CastCoverz. She was very afraid and very tired and wondered what was wrong with her body and felt betrayed by her body. But when it came time that she could have the cast removed, she was afraid of people bumping up against her. And I said, honey, why don't you just wear your sling for another week? And sure enough, within a couple days, she started taking it off and getting her confidence back in the fact that her arm was going to be okay, and that if somebody hit it, she was going to be okay, because she was in a cast for a long time.
And it's also a sign to other people, a sling is a very clever thing, because as you're walking down the hall at school, people see the sling going across your back. And, there's the kids. I mean, kids have had things and they come up and they jump on you. Especially middle school boys. Sorry, but, they just jump on each other and they see something, and it's a little bit of a reminder to everybody. And it's not very long, but just some transition period is a good idea.
So is there any, going back to our snowy season that we're in, and not everybody's in the snow, but any type of real different and inclement weather. And I'm particularly thinking, I can't believe how many people that we get questioned, can I shovel the snow? Like I mentioned earlier, can I go on skiing, outings, that type of thing. I had a woman who contacted us, and she had an X-Fix, which, for those of you who don't know, is an external fixator. If you think of people who have broken their necks, they have a halo, and that's an external fixator. Well, they're being used also for other areas of the body, including, the heel and, any type of leg or heel, foot surgery. And she wanted to go snowmobiling with an X-Fix. And so the rule of thumb, I always said, is ask your doctor, use common sense, and make sure you cover whatever it is, particularly in the winter, just because of the cold and the opportunity for your flesh to, freeze. You don't want to do that. What else can what I think I'm asking is, there are a lot of people who just want to ignore that they have an injury. They just want to ignore that they have an injury and just proceed with their life. We've talked about this a little bit, but what would you say if somebody came in and said, look, I have to shovel my walk. I have to go on the snowmobiling, and it's not good advice. What would you recommend, particularly for adults who are being obstreperous?
Very good word. The inconvenience and really more than that, the really interruption of your life from an orthopedic injury is substantial. And we recognize that, the orthopedic world recognizes that. But we'll hear stories of people, I have an X-Fix, I have a cast, and I climbed this and I did that. And those are great. You don't hear as many times that people did it and a problem happened. And you're not usually going to lose your leg or lose your arm, but as you and I have used the phrase before, you just have to respect the injury. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to do nothing. You talk about snowmobile. You can be on a snowmobile and go on a snowmobile trip. You're not going to take jumps. And I used to describe it. Kids would say, with certain things, can I go in a pool, or can I do this or that? And I say, yes, you have to do it like a 50-year-old man. Gently, cautiously. And I'm older than 50 now, so nothing about me.
So am I.
Yeah, exactly. You just pretend, because 50 is really old to kids. They think that's 1,000. So you can do things, but it just takes risk. And when you do that, if you are on the losing end of it, you have three possibilities. Nothing bad is going to happen. And the other two are bad. You lengthen your treatment period, or you really change your treatment plan. So it's terribly inconvenient, and your best advice is to be able to really comply with the instructions really to the letter, and you'll get better the fastest. And
I concur, and luckily I've been giving the same advice. I have so many customers call, and I love talking to customers. That's just my highlight of my day. I can't believe how many want to just push the envelope, and I have to do the tough love thing and say, basically, look, you're injured. Number one, you're injured. And so your body's compensating in different ways to so you can heal. So whether you're walking, you have an arm in a cast, it doesn't matter. And you have to respect the fact that you are in a healing phase. And so you can't do necessarily everything that you want to do. And so please respect that. And, then I always go back, what did your doctor say? And they say, well, they said I couldn't do this or couldn't do. I said, you have to respect what your doctor says.
The risk is substantially, the biggest inconvenience for an adult is being able to drive. And unfortunately, every study that's looked at your reaction time and safety with any type of device on arm or leg shows that you're worse off. But
oh, this is fascinating.
But the inconvenience of not being able to drive, especially if you live alone, or your partner or whoever you live with happens to be just also very busy with a job or things to do. And yet we kind of ignore that. We pretend that that data isn't out there. But so I will advise people that test yourself, get behind the wheel with a friend, partner, parent, loved one, and just see how you're doing. See if you can hit the brake real quick when someone runs a light. Confine some of your trips just to where you need to go to the store and things like that. But, all the data shows that this really changes your ability to be safe. But the practicality makes it so hard to just stay home and do nothing.
So it's the balance, as you said earlier, the safety versus the practicality.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so this, you reminded me, I can't tell you how many times I've heard of customers taking their boot off if they have a boot, because their foot is it's their right foot is cast as booted in this case, and to drive, and there's a reason that you're in a boot. You can't take it off unless the doctor says you can take it off for sleeping. That would be the only time. And I'm a note to self. I am going to do a blog post about reaction times. I will find that study and write about that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Dr. Hoffinger.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Yeah, I read it hoping that the conclusion was going to be different. I read it just hoping that it was going to be different, but it wasn't.
Okay, so everybody take heart. If you have a broken bone, try really hard to get people to help. And actually, this I can't believe how many people want to help if you have hurt yourself. So try not to go alone. I know a lot of you don't like to ask for help. When you have a child, it's very different because you're taking care of the child. But as an adult, if you live alone, or you, as Dr. Hoffinger said, if your other live-in adult is busy and working, you need help. Your friends want to help you. And so definitely take them up on it. They don't know how to help you with the cast. And this is one way. Could you drive me to my medical appointment? Could you drive me to the store? Could you pick up a couple things for me? That's a wonderful way. And people typically are very happy to help. If you're involved with the church or a synagogue, ask them for help as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. So I'm really glad you brought this up. Thank you. Okay, so we've got another question we've got a COVID question. Anything different that I need to know about having a cast and COVID? How do I keep it clean? Does COVID stay on the cast, etc.? And we'll close on that.
I don't think in general I can find anything different about COVID and the cast. Will it live on the cast? It'll live on the cast as it lives on other inanimate objects. And so, you wash your hands, and you don't always wash your face, and you don't put your face on people, but you may touch things. And so if you keep your cast covered or use alcohol, there's talk about using alcohol to wipe the outside of the cast because it evaporates. But I think keeping it covered, just good hygiene, and it really shouldn't be any different with the virus from that, because to the extent that it's contagious, the biggest risk, as we know, is from exhaled aerosolized particles on surfaces. It lives. It's less of a threat, and we're all looking forward to when it's just not a threat at all.
Right, when it's not even a question anymore. Right. Well, next time we meet, which is in a couple weeks, we will talk about how to advocate for yourself with the doctor and how to ask questions, what to expect, managing those expectations. So looking forward to having that conversation with you in 2 weeks, which is the 27th, Wednesday, the 27th, the same time, same place.
Great.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.